All right, ladies and gentlemen, weapon crafting is now within Destiny 2 along with the release of Witch Queen. At first, it can seem really confusing as you start getting red border weapons that have XP bars. Maybe you visit the Enclave, which is where you craft weapons, and you see these new element resources wondering how in the world do you get some? Can you craft any weapon? What are weapon patterns? I'm going to be going over all of it, and by the time you walk away from this video, you're going to know everything there is to know about weapon crafting inside of Destiny 2. But before we get started, real quick, if you're new and only if you enjoy my videos or find them useful, then feel free to subscribe, especially if you enjoy guides like this one, as I got a lot of easy to follow / understand guides coming. Okay, plug out of the way, let's get into it. So first up, let's quickly go over where weapon crafting takes place and some other need to know information. You can craft and edit weapons at the Enclave on Mars at the Resonance engine. When you first interact with the Resonance engine, you'll see a screen that gives you two options: shape and reshape. To shape a weapon is to craft it, and to reshape is to edit a previously crafted weapon. Now, sadly, not every weapon in the game can be crafted, only certain ones. And because only crafted weapons can be reshaped, this means you can't edit every weapon in the game, only certain ones. There are currently 29 weapons in the game that can be crafted. If you want to see which weapons can be crafted, head over to your Triumphs tab and select Patterns and Catalyst. Okay, so now that you know where to craft / edit weapons and which weapons can be crafted / edited, how do you craft weapons? I just mentioned patterns, and if you try to go and craft a weapon, you've probably noticed it says pattern has not been unlocked. A pattern is essentially a weapon's blueprint, and in order to obtain said pattern, you need to complete Deepsight resonance extractions on said weapon. And some weapons require multiple Deepsight resonance extractions in order to obtain the pattern. To see how many Deepsight resonance extractions are needed, head back over to your Triumphs tab and select Patterns and Catalyst, and hover over whatever weapon's pattern you're trying to obtain. It will tell you here. Now, if you're scratching your head wondering, well, how do I complete Deepsight resonance extractions? Because myfi, you've been saying it a lot, to get these patterns so I can craft weapons. Well, I'll explain that in just a second. First, let's talk about the process of crafting, because it'll all tie together in the end, I promise. Okay, just hold on. Once you've unlocked the pattern, you can now select that weapon at the Resonance engine under the shape section, and you will begin crafting it. The first thing you need to choose is what frame the weapon will be. This doesn't mean you can have any frame. So like, for example, on a shotgun, you can't change between like a precision frame or an aggressive frame, etc. You are given a specific frame, but you can give that frame a minor stat boost. This is why you have different frame options. Just go through the frame options and you'll see they're all the same frames, except one of the minor stats at the bottom will be boosted. Now, in order to select these boosted frames, you need to get the weapon to level 7. This means you need to craft the weapon first, level it up, then come back and change the frame. We'll talk about weapon levels later. Once you've selected your frame, the other perk columns will open up, you know, like perk column 1, 2, 3, and 4 that we're all used to when, you know, when like we're farming god rolls or whatever. Now, you'll notice that the first two columns, or technically they're called sockets, are pretty basic. Perks we're used to seeing, but when you get to columns, like I said, technically they're called sockets 3 and 4, you'll notice you'll have normal perks. Technically perks are called traits, but everyone has called them perks, okay? But you'll also have enhanced, like, copies of those same perks / traits. These enhanced perks are essentially supercharged versions of the normal ones. Now, just like the frames, some of these perks throughout the sockets are going to require a higher weapon level. I promise we'll talk about that in just a second. From here, your last step is to finalize the shape. Now, technically, there is another like socket, but that's just a cosmetic with like kill counters and stuff. Those are acquired from higher level activities, so we're not gonna, they don't really affect the weapon at all. Now, you probably noticed as you were slotting your frame and your perks in, it was saying that it was going to cost something. Well, now is your time to pay. Everything is added up when you're finalizing the weapon. You're not charged for slotting anything in until you finalize. So with how to craft out of the way, what about those things you were being charged when you finalize the weapon? You know, the resonant alloys, elements, ascendant alloys. Well, if you've never heard of these, then that's fine, as they're brand new to the game and a big part of crafting. In fact, that's essentially the only part they play in the game is crafting. Essentially, they're crafting materials. So how do you get these materials? First is Resonant Alloy. This one is super easy. You get it by dismantling legendary weapons. You can hold a max of 80, and they're located in your inventory. These are used when first shaping a weapon and when adding or changing the masterwork. Next is Ascendant Alloy. Think of these like your Ascendant shards, but for crafting. They're only acquired from completing high difficulty activities in the Throne World or by buying them from Raoul for 400 legendary shards, but you can only purchase one per week. They're used for enhanced perks and applying a catalyst to an exotic. And finally, we have elements. These are kind of the big ones. There's a total of 5, but one of them is a base element that's used for everything. And whenever you obtain one of the other 4 elements, you'll obtain, this base element as well. This base element is called the neutral element. The other 4 elements are, and I'm probably gonna butcher some of these names, Adroit element, Mutable element, Energetic element, and Ruinous element. You acquire them by completing Deepsight resonance extractions. Remember when I talked about patterns earlier in the video and told you I'd explain how to complete a Deepsight resonant extraction because you needed to actually unlock patterns? Well, here we go. A Deepsight resonant extraction is only possible on weapons with red borders. If you've been playing the game and wondering why you keep getting these weapons that have red borders, well, now you know. When you hover over one of these red border weapons, it'll say one of 2 things. Either this weapon has active Deepsight resonance that can be progressed, or something along the lines of this weapon has a pattern. If it mentions a pattern, then that just means it's a craftable weapon and you haven't acquired its pattern. Once you acquire the pattern though, future drops of that weapon with the red border will just default back and say what I just said, the weapon or this weapon has active Deepsight resonance that can be progressed. So how do you progress the active Deepsight resonance? Well, it's simple. You'll see an attunement bar when you hover over one of these red border weapons. And in order to fill that attunement bar up, it's essentially a progress bar. You must get kills with the weapon and complete activities with the weapon equipped. In my opinion, the best way to do this is by using the weapon in the new Wellspring 6-man activity. Each completion would put me at about 70 to 80% complete. Once you've completed the attunement progress bar, you'll be able to inspect the weapon and complete the Deepsight resonance extraction. Now, completing this extraction will grant you 2 rewards. First will be the neutral element, and the second reward will be one of the other 4 elements that I mentioned earlier. The other elements you get will depend on what perks are in columns 3 and 4 on that weapon. The other 4 elements are tied to perks. I don't currently have a list of what perks are tied to what elements, but you'll learn as you play the game, and when I do have that list, I'll put it down in the description. In the meantime, you can see what perks give what elements by hovering over said perk. You can also see how many of these 4 different elements you have because, well, they don't take up inventory space. They're hidden materials. You can then pick which element you want whenever you extract by going down to the bottom next to the weapon mod slot, and you'll be able to see there what the element will be when you extract. And congratulations, you have now completed a Deepsight resonance extraction. The final thing you should know about these elements is all of them except the neutral element have a cap of 250. Now, some final things to know about weapon crafting. First, the masterwork, just like some of the other perks and frames, require the weapon to be leveled up. Also, when it comes to weapon level, it's retroactive. So if you were to level up a certain weapon, then recraft, all right, not reshape, but just craft the same weapon again, it'll already be at whatever level your other of that same weapon is. Now, I haven't talked about reshaping because it's the same as crafting, just, changing what you originally crafted. You normally will craft a gun, go level it up, then reshape it to have those better perks you unlocked by leveling it up. Okay, so now how do you level up a gun? Well, you just use it, get kills, and complete activities with it. I was running the PsyOps Battlegrounds, a new 3-player seasonal activity, and was getting about 1 level every completion. You could also go to something like Shiro Chi and just farm out kills if you wanted. But that's essentially everything you need to know about weapon crafting. There are 2 more things I think you should know, and that's revolving around the red border weapons. First is, remember that every legendary weapon in the game can drop with that red border, but only ones that can be crafted will mention the pattern when you hover over it, unless you've already completed the pattern. But that doesn't mean a weapon that can be crafted that you haven't obtained the pattern for will drop with a border. I've had tons of the new craftable weapons that I don't have the pattern for drop without the red border. They're just plain old drops and are useless for crafting. The second is, don't be like me and delete all your red border weapons when you first start playing the game. You'll get a lot when you first, you know, start going through the campaign. I started deleting mine because they were taking up inventory space. I had no idea what they were for. Okay, do not do that. Do the Deepsight resonant extractions for those elements that it gives. Even if the red border weapon doesn't have the element you're looking for, you know, if you're trying to craft a specific weapon, and that's because there's 4 elements, and these red border weapons can only have a max of 2 different elements, not including the neutral element, on them at the same time. Some will only have 1 because the perks will be linked to the same element. Like the column 3 and column 4 perk will be linked to the same element, but that's besides the point. There will only be a max of 2. And you're probably going to need whatever, you know, that Deepsight resonance extraction is going to give in the future eventually, okay? Unless you're already at the 250 cap. But even then, you can still get the neutral element, which you need for literally all crafting. But that is weapon crafting in its entirety. I didn't mention exotics because those are kind of just like one-time things that follow their own rules, and you know, those are super straightforward. It'll tell you exactly how to get exotics. Now, before you head out, drop a comment down below which weapon you're going to be crafting first and what combination of perks are you going with. All right, give me some good weapon crafting ideas. Also wanted to let you all know that my code myfi is currently 30% off on G Fuel. So if you want to support me, also word on the block is picking up some G Fuel with code myfi increases your red border weapon drop. So I'm just saying, if you want to get all those weapon patterns unlocked, then you better pick some up while you can. All right, link below. If you enjoyed the video, then feel free to drop a like, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.